everyone, welcome to The Point World Affairs. I'm Cha Sang-min. In a speech to the UN General Assembly announcing the big diplomatic direction of the United States, President Trump said that he would open up a new era of peace. He's also added that the time and location of the second Pyongyang-Washington summit will be announced soon. On today's episode, we analyze whether or not President Trump and Kim Jong Un will finally be able to reach a satisfactory deal in their upcoming summit. For that, we have with us Professor Choo Jae-woo from Kyung Hee University. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Before we jump into the questions, let's take a look at this short clip.
After the Inter-Korean Summit in Pyongyang, President Moon and Trump met in New York where the UN General Assembly was held. This is their 7th meeting.
남북 간에 좋은 합의를 이루었고 또 북한의 비핵화에 대해서도 진전된 합의가 있었습니다. 트럼프 대통령께 전해달라는 김정은 위원장의 메시지도 있었습니다.
After receiving the results of the Pyongyang meeting and Kim Jong-un's message, President Trump announced a second U.S.-North Korea summit that will take place in the near future.
We'll be having a second summit with Chairman Kim in the not-too-distant future. Secretary of State will be dealing with that subject, but Mike Pompeo has been in touch with them.
President Moon is now recognized as an accomplished mediator that resumed the stalled dialogue between the U.S. and North Korea. President Trump made a speech at the UN General Assembly a day after meeting with President Moon Jae-in. While just a year ago he was alluding to military measures against North Korea, his speech this year was about peace.
The missiles and rockets are no longer flying in every direction. Nuclear testing has stopped. Some military facilities are already being dismantled. Our hostages have been released, and as promised, the remains of our fallen heroes are being returned home to lay at rest in American soil. I would like to thank Chairman Kim for his courage and for the steps he has taken.
President Moon has also said in a speech to the UN General Assembly that talks on denuclearization and an official declaration to end the Korean War will be actively discussed during the upcoming meeting between U.S. and North Korea.
전쟁 동식은 매우 절실합니다. 평화 체제로 가기 위해 반드시 거쳐야 할 과정입니다. 앞으로 역할을 위한 과감한 조치들이 관련국 사이에서 실행되고 종전선언으로 이어질 것을 기대합니다.
On this week's The Point World Affairs, we project the timing of the upcoming meeting and connect with experts to gauge the public sentiment in the U.S.
President Moon traveled to New York to meet with President Trump and to discuss about the sincerity Kim Jong-un has showed him about denuclearization.
Yes.
And he has also emphasized what Kim Jong-un had said, that buying time or lying about this wouldn't make any progress for Pyongyang. So is this convincing to you?
Yes, it sounds convincing because over the years, I think Kim Jong-un did his homework. I think given his sincerity to be real, I think he studied hard on and assessed hard on the China's position, American position, and our position on this particular issue. And I don't think his lessons were invalid. I think his lessons were premised on a few things. And I think, first of all, I think the chicken game that he had with Mr. Trump last year, there's a valuable lesson that he learned. And I think he came to a better understanding of China's position on this potential loss that might bring from all these, provocations and confrontations with the United States. And lastly, his meeting with President Moon 3 times this year, I think that's where he found some comfortableness on the Korean affairs.
The two Korean leaders, when they
Yes.
met this time, it was a very friendly atmosphere. They climbed all the way up to the Mount Baekdu,
Yes.
and it was quite remarkable. It was very beautiful up there as well.
That's right.
Right. So a lot of people, not just on the Korean Peninsula, but
Yes.
around the world, probably felt that the closer ties between the two leaders. I think.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
And it was apparent and obvious that the two leaders felt really comfortable with each other, and I think that's where the seed of confidence and trust was being laid.
Right. Talking about confidence, though,
Yes.
The evidence for this sincerity of
Yes.
Kim Jong-un, which everybody is very interested in,
Yes.
do you think it comes from the economic growth and development that he has continuously been pushing for?
Yes, that's right. Since the beginning of this year, that's one emphasis he has particularly made, and he wanted to let the world know about his determination and willpower towards economic development. And he clearly stated that it would be his priority beginning this year. And I think on numerous occasions he made those statements very often and very clear that I think he wants to convey that message to the world.
I understand. He definitely, it was a little bit different even from the January New Year's speech where
Yes.
he did make focus on this economic development, right?
That's right.
And multiple occasions through all these historic summits with Korea and the United States, he definitely made a step forward.
That's right. And over these, in the course of these summit meetings, this is where he's different from his forefathers. I think he made it really clear that even nuclear weapons or nuclear programs could be expandable for the economic gains. And I think that's where we have to pay really keen attention to.
I understand. Let's connect to local experts to hear
Yes.
their opinions.
Okay.
President Moon made a trip to the U.S. to attend the UN General Assembly and hold summit talks with President Donald Trump. During the visit, he also interviewed with Fox News and spoke at the Council on Foreign Relations to alleviate the high distrust that U.S. conservatives have toward North Korea. In other words, many U.S. citizens do not believe Kim's promise to realize denuclearization in the Korean Peninsula. In fact, many in the U.S. still believe dialogue with North Korea is pointless. What's more, an increasing number of people are saying that the U.S. had made too much concession during the Singapore summit, and that unless there is a tangible resolve from North Korea's end on its pledges, the U.S. will make no further concessions. Critics are also warning that the U.S. should be more cautious as to not make any hasty decisions while rushing ahead with the upcoming U.S.-North Korea summit.
조선 반도를 핵무기도 핵 위협도 없는 평화의 땅으로 만들기 위해 적극 노력해 나가기로 확약하였습니다.
But through the recent Inter-Korean summit in September, Chairman Kim has announced his will to denuclearize to the world and expressed his sincerity to President Trump with many letters. Has Kim's recent actions changed the public sentiment in the U.S. about him? We connect with experts to explore the reasons for such deep-rooted distrust towards North Korea and what the U.S. hopes to gain from the second U.S.-North Korea summit.
So are there any changes in America's popular sentiment regarding North Korea after the September Inter-Korean Summit in Pyongyang, recent Moon-Kim Summit in New York, and the soon-to-be summit between Trump and Kim Jong-un? We have with us Steve Herman, VOA News White House Bureau Chief. Good to see you again, Steve.
It's a pleasure to see you.
Steve, you must have witnessed everything at the UN General Assembly there in New York. Tell us what President Trump had in mind about North Korea and the public reaction to his thoughts.
Well, it's been quite remarkable because President Trump has really had nothing to say but good words about Kim Jong-un, expressing confidence that denuclearization is going to happen, and more immediately that there's going to be a second summit. What we're looking at, based on the comments that have been made by the President and the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, in the last few days, is it's likely to occur sometime between October and early next year. Pompeo talking about going back to Pyongyang before the end of the year to set up the arrangements. And of course, the North Korean Foreign Minister Lee is here in New York for the UN General Assembly this week. So presumably there are going to be further discussions between him and Pompeo about this as well.
Right, it seems like both Presidents Moon and Trump think very highly of Kim Jong-un, and they call him that they're very open, that he's very open and sincere, he's terrific, all these kind of good adjectives. So what do Americans make of this?
Well, we have to remember a year ago we had Donald Trump at the United Nations being quite bellicose towards North Korea. And so we've gone to little rocket man to something very different, if not best friends. But one thing that we've heard from President Trump, I was in the room with him when he was having a meeting with the Colombian president, and he spent quite a bit of time while the media was in the room talking about North Korea when the focus was presumably supposed to be on South America. And what he said a couple of times is that we, meaning the journalists and the rest of the world, don't know what's going on behind the scenes, that there are all sorts of secret communications going on between Washington and Pyongyang. And so things are looking a bit much brighter. The president referring to some of the media coverage, the skepticism, and I've been among the skeptics in asking questions to the president and the Secretary of State about what evidence do we have that North Korea has taken any steps whatsoever towards denuclearization or dismantling its long-range missile program. And the answer that we get is that they're not saying anything publicly, but that things behind the scenes are looking quite bright. So make of that what you will.
Steve, that's a really good news amid all the pessimism I've been hearing.
Well, I guess it's, are you going to put faith in what the U.S. administration officials are saying, or do you put faith in some of the pessimism and skepticism about people who follow this on a day-to-day basis and don't necessarily have to spin it for the consumption in the way that government officials do? I don't think we know at this point. It's one of these things that we can say only time will tell as to whether U.S. government officials were being too optimistic or the pundits were being too pessimistic.
Right, Steve, President Trump has also been hinting at the second meeting with Kim Jong-un. So as to why is he so eager to meeting with Kim Jong-un again?
Well, I think he saw that the first summit resulted in incredible optics for him. It showed him as a world leader, a statesman, a way that he would like to be portrayed, that he did something that nobody said was possible. And he had that signing ceremony in Singapore alongside Kim Jong-un, the historic handshake, posing for photos together. And he lavished in that. And so why not an encore, a second season? He was the reality TV program host, and that was a really big, successful show with great ratings. And so a sequel or a second season, why not?
Thank you, Steve. That was Steve Herman from VOA News. Professor Choo.
Yes.
It's interesting to hear about what's going on inside the White House.
Yes.
So what do you think about the remarks made by Presidents Trump and Moon at the UN General Assembly?
Yes, I think they found a common ground between the two, and I think they shared a strong confidence and trust in the message that Kim Jong-un has conveyed to them at the assembly. And that's why Mr. Trump is looking forward to a second meeting with Kim Jong-un, and I think that sends a clear message to the world.
How about the midterms, which everybody
Yes.
is focused on? It's not just about the United States. Everybody is
That's
all
right.
around the world is focused on this.
That's right.
So how significant is this midterms for the denuclearization talks?
Yes, I think the midterm election results is going to demonstrate the American public's confidence in Mr. Trump, and I think that's why the midterm election is going to be really important to his political career and his leadership. So here, if he comes out as winner, meaning that, Republicans taking both the Senate and the Congress, I think he'll be in much better position to deal with North Korea. If Republican loses Congress, House of Representatives, and I think that could be a little troublesome to his endeavor with North Korea.
I see. So it's very closely linked to confidence-building measures regarding North Korea, then.
Yes.
I understand. Let's connect to another expert. Bruce Klingner, a former CIA Deputy Chief for Korea, now at the Heritage Foundation. Bruce, thank you for joining me.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for having me.
We have already seen the demolition of the Punggye nuclear test site a while ago, and Kim Jong-un has also promised to dismantle the Dongchangri missile testing site, as well as the Yongbyon nuclear facility. So despite all these efforts, why is there still so much distrust towards North Korea within the United States?
Well, I've been working North Korea for 25 years, and I've seen 8 international agreements with North Korea all fail. The September 2005 six-party talks statement was actually much more expansive on North Korean commitment to denuclearize. What we've seen so far this year sounds good, but is actually much less than what it committed to do in the past. Also, North Korea continues to be in violation of 11 UN Security Council resolutions. So, there's a hope that this time will be different, but after having 8 failed attempts before, we are very skeptical.
North Korea is demanding the U.S. to declare the end of the Korean War as a measure, as a response to the corresponding measure that North Korea talked about during the Pyeongyang declaration. But as much as it is just a political declaration, can't Washington simply sign the deal and then just take it back if North Korea were to not keep the promise?
No, once you sign it, you can't take it back. And there is great concern, not only by North Korea's insistence, but increasingly on President Moon's insistence. There's growing concern and really sort of irksomeness in the U.S. government about Moon's policies. And there are serious ramifications that could flow from a peace declaration. It could lead to dominoes falling of if the war is over, how can you not sign a peace treaty, which does have an impact on United Nations Command? And why do you have so many troops there? Why do you have a nuclear umbrella? Why do you have an alliance? Why do you have forces in the region? And also beyond that, it could also lead to a further degradation in the enforcement of required UN sanctions as well as U.S. law. So there's concern not only about the declaration, but really the direction that the Moon administration is going in.
Then what do you think President Trump should take away from the upcoming Pyongyang-Washington summit?
Well, I think what we have to have is more concrete progress. When President Trump went to Singapore, it really was more of a photo opportunity. I think that was a mistake to give away the first time you have the two leaders meet without getting anything more tangible. I refer to the 3 mistakes of Singapore. One is once again accepting a poorly written, vague document which doesn't clearly delineate everyone's requirements, and that's the problem with all the previous agreements with the North. Very different from the well-crafted arms control treaties we had with the Soviet Union. The second mistake was unilaterally canceling the military exercises without even notifying our Defense Department or our allies. And the third was the beautification of Kim Jong-un. This is someone who's on the U.S. sanctions list for committing crimes against humanity, as the UN has concluded. And Trump is talking that he's funny, he loves his people. And so that makes it harder to maintain pressure on North Korea for its violations. So in any subsequent summit, we'd have to have really a carefully crafted document which identifies what all nations need to do to try to further progress on the issue.
By carefully crafted document, do you mean, does it include measures on denuclearization talks?
Exactly. If you look at the arms control treaties with the Soviets, it was very lengthy, very detailed, and I was part of one of the negotiating delegations in Europe. Everyone knew exactly what they had to do. There was no ambiguity. And it included robust verification measures. every agreement with the North, and also if you look at the Panmunjom, the Pyeongyang, and the Singapore declarations, they're all very vague. They're very lengthy on the promises to North Korea. And then they mention denuclearization almost in passing in the last or second to last paragraph. And it includes the vague phrases such as denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. And we know from our own and my own discussions with North Koreans that they have a very different definition of denuclearization and even Korean Peninsula. They include Guam and U.S. submarines, U.S. aircraft carriers, U.S. dual-capable aircraft in Japan as all being part of the Korean Peninsula. We see the peninsula as the landmass. So we need to really identify what both sides mean by denuclearization, and we need to bring North Korea into compliance with the UN definition of what that means, which is unilateral disarmament of its nuclear missile and BCW programs.
That was Bruce Klingner from the Heritage Foundation. Thank you for your insights, Bruce. Professor, it seems like there's deep-rooted distrust within the United States regarding North Korea. Well, what's your take on this?
Yes, indeed, there's obstacles. Of course, there are obstacles after, not having the opportunity to build trust and confidence among the three parties, South Korea, North Korea, the United States. But here, all the initiatives that we are taking among the three countries over the past 2 years has one goal, that is to overcome these obstacles. And I think that's where the leaders have to focus on, and so do analysts like us. We have to be creative and innovative with our approaches to this particular issue. We cannot just blame on obstacles. Because of the obstacles, we cannot make any progress. But here, I think we have to be really creative and innovative to find some solutions that could overcome all these obstacles.
During the interview with Fox News, where President Moon sat down with Fox News and he discussed that there is a general consensus between or among Seoul, Pyongyang, and Washington on these North Korean issues. So, but when we listen to Bruce Klingner, he says that the three mistakes he mentioned about how the poorly written document that has been signed, and the suspension of military exercises, and the beautification of Kim Jong Un, as he called. He mentioned these kind of things. So, considering these obstacles, as you have mentioned, with this, how can we really think about the Fox News interview with right?
That's a good point. I can see where his concern is coming from, but at the same time, the direction, the trend has been moving towards that direction. So I don't think we can really resist that trend artificially or by our will. So good trends, we have to let it go and let it flow. But if there's some kind of force that goes against this trend, then we have to find a solution to overcome that force too. So I think the majority of the people still feels that the progress that three countries, Washington, Seoul, and Pyongyang has been making has been terrific, and I don't think they're against that trend.
I understand. And before I let you go, how about China's role? China also has been becoming a bit nervous after hearing these good talks between all these Koreas and Washington. And now that they have this sour relationship with Washington, especially, would it be possible, actually, for China to meddle in this denuclearization talks or any talks about North Korea?
Yes, they'll try to meddle in, that's for sure. But it'll be, it'll depend on us, us meaning that, three of us, whether we're going to embrace or accept, China's role in this picture. But at the same time, China has been persistently demanding of its share in the peaceful cause of the Korean Peninsula issues. So I don't think China is going to back down. I don't think China is going to retreat from playing this kind of role. When the time is right, I think they're going to assert its position and role in this process.
I understand. Whoever meddles in, let there be peace on this Korean Peninsula and the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
The two parties that hold the key to bringing true denuclearization in the Korean Peninsula are the United States and North Korea. As much as dialogue between Washington and Pyongyang has sparked again after a tumultuous run, we hope that a second summit with Trump and Kim can lead to a big breakthrough in denuclearization talks. That's all we have for this week's The Point World Affairs. Thank you for tuning in and see you again next week.